Hey, this is Donnie Smith, and I had a question emailed to me about undercoating. I see the question comes from Paul and says, "Hello, I just found your YouTube channel and I'm wondering if someone might be able to point me in the right direction here. I just bought a new car from the south and live in the northeast. The underside of the car is in perfect condition and I'm looking to make sure it stays that way in the presence of chloride they use on the roads in the winter. The car is a 2004 G35 sedan. There is a little bit of factory undercoating underneath, but the vast majority of the underside is either paint or primer. I have the engine and the transmission out this weekend, so I would like to be able to do it this weekend. Do you have any recommendations as to what I should use? I've heard that POR 15 should only be used on rust and it doesn't stick well to smooth surfaces. I've heard epoxy primer and nothing else should be used. I've heard epoxy primer first and then bed liner on top. I've heard so many stories and mixed I've heard so many stories and mixed reports online that I really would appreciate an expert telling me what would be best for my situation. I would be glad. Let's see. It says thanks in advance and hope to hear from you soon. So, Paul, probably, if it's in good condition, I mean, as far as the surface being smooth, nothing's really going to stick that good. It's going to have to be cleaned real well, degreased real well, and sanded for anything to stick to. Now, if you sand it and there's no metal showing, you could put bed liner straight on top of that. I think bed liner would work well. SEM's got some bed liner that works good, and they recommend if you do go through and there's some metal exposed that you do prime that first. Then you'll have to come back and scuff that area up with 180. You want to use 180 on these areas, or they also have a bed liner brush that works well. But if you rough this up, scuff it up with 180, and there's no metal showing, you really don't need to use the epoxy primer. So it just kind of depends. I mean, if it's in that good a shape, probably you can have that scuffed up without much metal showing, and then you can just come back and prime a few spots where you did burn through, and then scuff that up and use bed liner. But I think bed liner would be the most durable out of what you mentioned. The POR 15, that works well, but that's really good for rust, like you mentioned. Probably the bed liner would be the best, from the things that you mentioned. Epoxy primer is good, but it does not hold up. It needs to be top coated because it will absorb moisture. Any primer really is not that good of a top coat. So that I probably would go with that if that's the only product you're using. If you do spray it all with epoxy, with SEM anyway, they recommend that you come back and you scuff that up before applying the bed liner. So a couple different options here. If you want to get a more specific question, ask me. I'd be glad to help you out a little more on that. But just from what I see on here, I would scuff it up with 180. If you have any bare metal, you can hit that with epoxy and then come back and spray the bed liner on. I'm familiar with the SEM. In fact, we've done a video. I don't have it all completed yet. We've done the inside of a Jeep, kind of like what you're talking about. Worked well. There's other companies out there. This was a sprayed on. I mean, it looked real nice. There's some other companies out there that make some roll on. I've had students do that. I'm not as impressed with that kind. It just doesn't look as good to me. But I mean, if you don't have a facility or anything like that to spray it on, that might be an option for you. I think is it I can't think of the name of it right now, but probably you go to your auto parts store, they'll have some. Some of them come in a spray can. I used some of that on a Mustang project I was working on just for the inside of my quarters and all that. So you might can use some spray can, might can get some roll on where you roll it on. But yeah, that'd probably work good, and it'd seal that off real good where a lot of that stuff don't get to your metal. But anyway, I hope this helps. If you have more questions, be sure and ask. I'd be glad to try to help you. I don't know what brands you're thinking about using. Like I said, I've used SEM, SEM. Um, I'll put a link down in the description for that. Um, your parts store probably has, like I said, spray can, roll on. So it just kind of depends on what your needs are, what would be the best to use. So anyway, I hope that kind of helps answer your questions. If you have a more specific question, be sure and ask, and I'll try to get back to you on that. Anyway, thanks for watching and take care, and we'll see you in the next video.